Welcome to the Ordinary Marathoner Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Ordinary Marathoner Podcast. My name is Coach Scott. I'll be your host today. Guys, I got a different kind of show I want to do today, not our ordinary podcast. I'm going to put a few slides up on the show at some point. So if you have a chance, if you have a choice actually, and you can watch the YouTube video, heading over to youtube.com, look for Ordinary Marathoner channel. It'll be over there. I got to tell you, so I didn't plan on doing a podcast today. I went to bed last night, and I had a couple different thoughts kind of attacking my brain, and I decided that this might be worthwhile. I don't know if it's worthwhile. I don't know if it's, but I figured, why not give it a shot? No one's listening anyway. I'm just kidding. Let me give you a little background on a couple things that put together the idea for this podcast. The first was, about maybe 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago, I did a presentation for Allison Knott's discussion group over at A New Well Sports Nutrition. If you want to check out their website, anewwell.co. And she asked me to do a presentation for her group about how I got into, basically my story on how I got into endurance sports and maybe some lessons learned along the way. So I did that presentation. It was about 45 minutes. We're not going to do it here. Don't worry. But it really, you know what? I got to tell you, doing that presentation, it felt really good. It felt really natural. And I don't know, I got really good feedback. So I felt like it was a good thing. And I kind of put it in the back of my brain and said, maybe that's something you can use later on. Maybe it's something you can use as a format for, or at least a base for something else later on. The second thing was I've been thinking hard a lot lately about how we've gone as a sport, the whole year of COVID, and how people are struggling in our sport, struggling to stay focused and motivated and getting things done. Typically what we're looking at is, I think every year is the same in our sport for a lot of us. We pick a race, we pick a goal. We put that out there for us. That's what we need to achieve. That's what we want to accomplish. And then we go after that goal. And typically that goal is a race. And so with the COVID and everything going on, all those races being stripped away, we have lost sight of those goals. And for so many of us, removing that kind of throws us into a little bit of a state of confusion, and it's very hard to stay focused and motivated and training going forward. And a lot of you guys have communicated that struggle with me this year. Now, 2 weeks ago, we did a podcast, and I talked about accomplishment and how important accomplishment is and achieving things during our sport. It's kind of like what we're all about, is accomplishing things. And I talked specifically about an athlete that I coach. Her name's Angela. Angela decided that amongst all of this destruction and mayhem in our sport and races getting canceled and people being very upset and unnerved about it, that she was going to take this as an opportunity. She was going to look at it as an opportunity to kind of see the silver lining of around the dark clouds, right? And she had always wanted to do Toronto Marathon. She always looked at that race and said it was something she could do. She just could never get there, travel, all that stuff. And the race was canceled this year, but they had a virtual version. And for her, that was good enough. That was good enough for an opportunity to say, hey, you know what? I was never going to get to do this race. I've always wanted to do this race. Let me embrace this and go after it. And she did. And she trained super hard and she worked really hard. I coached her through about 4 months. And at the end of the day, she destroyed her virtual race. She absolutely destroyed her personal best. I think, she was like 5 hours and 33 minutes, she was just looking to break through 6 hours. So she crushed it and destroyed it. And it's so great to hear a story like that. Last podcast we talked about Chris Nikic too. Another great story. It's just nice to hear great stories again. And to kind of be like, all right, this is like motivating us to kind of get back and do work, right? Start training, get back into the flow. Third conversation, the third thing that got me wanting to talk about the topic I want to talk about today was I had a conversation. It was kind of like a texting back and forth with an old friend of mine who was a football coach. I coached with him. He was the head coach. I was the offensive coordinator years ago. I loved coaching, man. It's one of those things I wish I would have been able to stay with. It just circumstances, opportunities not there, and I had to go back to work and that kind of thing. It's one of my regrets that I wish I would have stayed with football coaching. Anyway, we talked about kids. We talked about high school kids, college kids in this time of COVID, and how much, I know how much high school sports meant to me. That kind of like, yeah, I'm a little bit of that Al Bundy type. I know how much it meant to me. I know how much my senior year of baseball meant to me. I know how much my senior year of football meant to me. I know how much college sports meant to me. I know the relationships that I formed and a lot of the personality traits, the good ones that I've developed over the years stemmed from my experiences within sports. It truly was a gift given to me. And now we have this gift that that other kids growing up, they expect, they look forward to, they work towards. And here it is in the time of COVID, it's being taken away, right? And look, we're not here to argue. We're not here to argue whether it's right or wrong. That's a different thing. But what I want you to do is I want you to put your brain in the spot of an 18-year-old who's been, say, playing football all his life, 17-year-old probably, playing football all his life. Since he was a kid, since kindergarten, first grade. He got older, stayed with it, lifted, worked hard in the off season, got tough, learned how to play, watched games on TV so he could kind of, watching with an analytical eye to watch his favorite players and try to mimic them. Just working for that senior season. Maybe he had an idea he was going to go to college and play. Maybe he thought, he could play at that level. I don't know. Whatever it is, that desire to play, all those things that go into that senior season, and now people are just going to take it away from him. Now, listen, we stripped away sports in the spring in Massachusetts. In the fall, some sports are being played. I think soccer's being played. I don't know what else is being played, but I know football was canceled until February. So, and looking at it now, looking at the environment now and the things I'm hearing now, I would not think that football is coming back in February. It might, but right now I would think it's not. Now, professional levels, they're playing. They're not, some of these guys are Cam Newton, he got COVID. Kevin Durant, remember, he got COVID. He wasn't playing this year anyway, but big name players are getting this disease and they're just kind of sitting out a week and then coming back and playing. And meanwhile, these high school kids, they're not getting any opportunity. They're having something they looked forward to their entire life being taken away from them. And you can sit there and say, woe is me if you want this. If you are saying that, this is not your show. This is not your show. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking about the kids who are sitting there and they're mad. And I'm putting myself in their position. I'm thinking, what would I be if I was that kid? I would be mad. I would be livid. I would be angry at the adults. I would be so mad that I focused all my attention and who's taking it away? The adults. That's what I would be. And that I would miss out on that season. I'd be angry. I'd be upset. There'd be a void there, something that I was supposed to have, I was supposed to experience and didn't get to. And who knows what that void turns into, but I tell you what, you worry about it turning into. You worry anything bad. There's a laundry list of bad things, and it could start at something simple, like just being upset, being angry, not doing other things, becoming depressed. And then there's like the really, becoming vengeful, becoming suicidal, things that you need to worry about, things that you really care, the things that you don't want to happen. And what I'm thinking is, there's a void here. There's a void that has been created for these kids, and we're not talking about it. And yeah, you're not feeling bad about it. You feel bad about the people who contract this disease and it really bothers them, and to the point of death or whatnot, hospitalization, all that stuff. And you never really think about. Look, obviously, if you're a runner, you think about the marathons you've missed, the events that you've missed. But these kids they had something that was a life experience removed from their plan, for no fault of their own by adults. And I would be very angry if I were them. I'm just putting myself in their place and trying to figure it out. It doesn't make sense from 17, 18-year-old perspective all the way through college. It doesn't make sense to me. It would anger me. I would be very mad. And here's where I think that all of this comes together, because there's a message here for these kids. And it's number one, that, there's a lot of former athletes out there that understand what you're going through. They understand, that it's not the most ideal situation right now. And you can be angry about it. It's okay. You can be mad. But at some point, the optimistic way, the productive way, I guess, to look at it is, instead of just being mad and then getting depressed and then missing out and just being worried about missing out, is to fill that void with something else. Now, I'm going to grab a couple slides from this slideshow presentation I gave a couple months ago. Here is one. These are 3 pictures of me, guys. I'm not going to go into big detail. These are pictures of me at my worst. My brother's wedding. I got there that morning and I couldn't fit into the cummerbund that they had for me. I wasn't able to go to the tux fittings. I had another wedding the day before. So when I showed up that day, they gave me the cummerbund. It didn't fit and I couldn't wear it. And it was embarrassing and whatever. I just had to go to the wedding without it. And it bothered me. A little while later, this is me on vacation. All the way on the right is me on vacation. And this one got to me because I took that picture holding my daughter, and it was the first time I looked at my clothing, and it just really didn't fit. And my stomach just looked like it was just a big round ball. And I was like, oh my God. And then boom, that one in the middle. That one in the middle is the most embarrassing picture I've ever had taken of me. My sister took it. Thank you, Pauline. And she sent it to me after I finished my Ironman, a few, years later, and said, remember when you used to look like this? And I was like, wow. That is me at my most embarrassed, my worst time. My worst time ever. And there's a lot of pain behind that picture. There's things that you guys don't understand. It just look like a chubby guy, but man, there's a lot of anguish and pain behind that picture. Depression and just, things just not going right in life, health issues, that kind of thing. But I was able to work my way out of it, through running. A lot of people, I think if they looked at me at that point in that picture, you'd have never thought I came from an athletic background. But I did. And man, I look at this and I say to myself, how did I go from being this skinny little kid in high school to being this giant depressed guy, 15, 16 years later, whatever it was, and then back again? Because if you look at me in that picture, there's no way you would think that I was ever athletic, but I was. Growing up, I always dreamed that I was going to be a professional baseball player, and I still held on to that dream into my college years, and then it kind of fell through for other reasons. But I was athletic, is what I'm saying. So I can relate. And what I'm saying is, when I left, there's a point in time where you play your last game, guys. And sometimes you don't know it. There were sometimes we played our last football game in high school, and I thought that was my last game, and then I wound up playing in college again. But there's sometimes, or maybe you think you're going to make the playoffs and you don't, or whatever. You're just not prepared, and all of a sudden one day you wake up and there's no more games to be played. That may have happened to you recently, and you may have finished the game last year. You may have finished the game and you may have walked off the field and said, "Oh, I can't wait till next year," and then next year didn't happen. And now you're not prepared for this moment. You're not prepared. You weren't prepared to deal with this mentally. You don't know how to gather yourself and develop a plan. I mean, trust me, this happened to me for about 15, 16, 17 years, something of that nature. From 1996 to 2013, I couldn't get my head out of my ass when it came to athletics. I tried certain things. I always had a gym membership. Always had a gym membership. I would start going, I would go for a little while, and then I would stop, and I would start again. I'd lose all my gains, and then I'd start again at some point down the line. I would try pickup sports, try to play softball, try to play basketball. My gym had racquetball and squash. We tried to pick that up. They never really stuck. I played golf, but I tell you, I always rode the cart. I never walked. I mean, if you play golf and you walk, that can be exercise. It can be, especially if you carry your bag. A lot of people don't do that. Most people just jump in the cart and play. That's not really, that's kind of cheating. That's nothing. But I tell you, there's a lot of things that you could try to fill the void, but nothing ever stuck for me. Nothing ever stuck. There were other options out there, right? Running was never a thought for me. Why? Why didn't I ever think of running? I always thought of running like a track sport growing up. And for us, it's a little bit different. I don't think the sport had fully matured to where it is today, where it's a little bit more open-minded towards anyone. And people of any speed, of any size, any gender, any whatever, it doesn't matter. Anyone can run. Anyone can go and partake and participate in races. Back then, it was you kind of had this feeling like it was for track people. I wasn't a track person. In fact, I hated running. Running was my sport's punishment. There was a penalty, you run a lap. You fumble the ball, run a lap. Add more sprints, do whatever. It was always the punishment, and it was never something you ever wanted to do. It was like you only really did it if you felt like you were getting in trouble or if you were in training, I guess. But it was never my sport. I always kind of figured it was just not for me. And triathlon, forget it. Triathlon was on TV once a year. It was always Ironman Kona. It was always the most fit athletes, and there was just no way I fit in. I was just in awe of those guys, and there was no way that I would ever compete, even think about training for an Ironman triathlon. It just wasn't me. Now, a big traumatic event happened in my life in 2013. Basically, it was my divorce, and then that kind of flipped the switch for me. It did. It flipped the switch for me. And all of a sudden I went from, I needed something to focus on. This was a productive way of using my time, and getting out of the house really and getting my mind focused on other things. I started running. I went on a treadmill one day. I put a towel over the treadmill monitor so I wouldn't see the stats. And I just said, how far can I run? And I went after it and I went after it. I was 280 pounds. I was dying. This was December 2013. I had absolutely no idea how far I had gone. I just knew I couldn't breathe anymore. And I just kept telling myself one more step, until I couldn't handle it at all. I stopped the treadmill, I pulled off the towel, and I ran something like 0.26 miles, something like that, right around a quarter mile, which really frustrated me because I was always an athlete. I always felt like the mile mark, you better be able to run a mile if you consider yourself an athlete. And all of a sudden, I couldn't even run just a quarter mile. And so I got to work. Focusing on it. I was hit the exercise bike for about a month. Every morning before work, I'd get on the exercise bike. Every night I'd come home from work and I would spend an hour on the exercise bike. After about a month, I said, all right, let's try this running thing again. I probably am not that much better, but I went to the gym and I got back on that treadmill. I had been nervous to get on that treadmill. I didn't want to, it's one thing being in the hotel by myself. It's another thing being in the gym around other people. I didn't want other people to see me run. But I got to tell you, after, it's not that bad, guys. You should do it. Anyway, got on that treadmill, started running. I had the towel over the thing again. I had 3 songs on my set list. It was 12 minutes long. I figured if I could get through all 3 songs, that means I finished a mile. And what do you know? I got through all those 3 songs. And I felt good doing it. And so I started playing through them again. And I got through about halfway done. I said, I think I'm good here. And I stopped. And I wasn't really dying, but I felt accomplished. I felt good. I did what I came to do. I pulled the thing off and I did a mile and a half. So in a month, I went from not being able to run a quarter mile, right around a quarter mile I could run, to being able to run a mile and a half, just on pure focus and dedication and doing the work. And all of a sudden, I decided I'm going to try a 5K. 5K, when you can't run, it sounds pretty formidable. And it is, and it's a worthwhile goal. And so what happens is when you're a runner and you start into this running thing, it's a ladder. And it's a ladder that you follow. Maybe you run your first mile, then you run your first 5K, then you do a 10K, then there's a half marathon, 13.1 miles. And after that is the full marathon, right? That's the big one. And I went through that ladder. I have stories at each point of the way. We're not going to talk about all those today, maybe another time. But I went through all those ladders, and all of a sudden I found myself in November of 2014. So less than a year after I started running on that treadmill, I found myself at the starting line of New York City Marathon. And then I finished. Accomplishment, achievement, an amazing feeling, a day that I will never, ever forget. At that point in my life, it was the hardest thing I had ever done. It was amazing. The fulfillment of so much work was it was overwhelming. It was overwhelming. And that day, it has stayed with me and has become part of me. Just like my football career was, and trust me, I still hang on to those memories. I still hang on to that team camaraderie and all that stuff. I still have friends from my teams and all that good stuff, man. It's all there. And so that's when I look back, you look at it, and then I followed that up in July of 2017. I followed that up by finishing my first Ironman triathlon. I trained about a year really hard for that. and I finished about 15 hours, 55 minutes, something like that. I went up to another one in Maryland, and I'm still kind of training for those. That's kind of like my focus now. It's become, that's what I'm determined to do is to coach. I coach athletes that are training for triathlon, and then I also participate in myself because I understand what it means to accomplish something like this, to set your mind on it, to focus on it, to train for it and dedicate yourself to it and then achieve it. And it's worthwhile. It makes life worth living. It makes life worth living for no joke. So I've come full circle here. It just took me a long, long time. I went from athlete to chubby guy with the daiquiri to athlete. Back to athlete again. And all of that took me something like 17 years. Now, here's my problem. And this is why I want to talk to you kids out there, because you're at that point now where it's potentially the end of your athletic career. You may be going on to college, or you may be leaving college, and you may not have anything after that. And nobody ever prepares you for this moment, remember. Nobody ever does. And it took me 17 years to find something new to jump to and to dedicate myself to. You guys have been dedicating yourself to your sport, whether it be anything, whether it be baseball, football, basketball, softball, lacrosse, soccer, golf. I don't know about high school golf, but tennis, whatever it could be, whatever the athletic event is. And then all of a sudden it's gone. All of a sudden it's gone and you don't have it. And it's very hard because you learn the lessons. You learn the lessons about staying motivated, about competitiveness, being competitive, winning games, competing for your starting job. You get all that team camaraderie together, your friends, you go to battle with your friends, man. And when it comes to football, especially, you feel like it's battling with your friends and you're all in it together. And then underneath it all is a defining thing. It's you're defining yourself as a football player, as a triathlete, as a coach, as a whatever it may be, whatever your sport is, you're defining yourself as that person. And that is really the underlying dedication to it. You dedicate yourself to it, you become that. And that's really, when you think about it, even at the micro level, there are always things that make you go to practice, right? I think of football and I think of, there's a motivation to be a better player to win games. Then there's competitiveness. There's drive. I want to win. I want to win that starting job. I want to go to practice and work my butt off and be better than that next guy so that I can play more. And then there's the team camaraderie, right? Hey, I don't feel like going to practice today. I don't know, but you know what? I got to do it for my teammates, and you go. And then lastly, there's that dedication. I'm a football player. This is what I do. I may have a cold today. I may not feel to my best. I may feel run down mentally, physically, but not going to practice is not an option. And when you're on the team, it's kind of easier to do that, to make sure that happens. But when you're on your own and you're out of school and you don't have that sport and you don't have that thing to define you, it's harder. It's harder to stay dedicated. Super hard, guys. Super hard. I'm not joking. And I got a feeling that this is hitting people right now. It's hitting you. Like, you may not have football this year. Maybe last year was your last baseball season and it got canceled. Yeah, the rug pulled out from under you. Man, that's tough. And we're not spending enough attention focusing on that and helping you guys through and filling that void. Because I tell you what, like I said, if I was you and I was in high school and I lost my senior year because of this stupid disease, I would be blaming adults and be very, very angry over it. And like I said, it just fills this void. Now, here's the thing. Here's the kicker. There's nothing you can do about it. Don't you feel helpless? In the end, it's really helplessness. You can't write a letter to go ahead, write a letter to your congressman, write a letter to your governor. You think it's going to work? It ain't going to work. It may make you feel better. Hell, throw in some curse words while you're at it. But it ain't going to change. It ain't going to change it. It's definitely not going to change it in time for your senior. And you know it. And you feel helpless. That's part of the helpless feeling. What else are you going to do? How are you going to bring it back? Maybe, I don't know, you could set up a little pickup game or something like that. It's still not going to fill the void. Nothing's going to fill the void. Nothing's going to fill the void unless you fill it with something else. You got to look for alternatives. And man, I tell you what, it took me 17 years to find running and triathlon. And the beauty of it is we looked at those four things that I just told you about. motivation. Look at me. I wanted to run a mile. I trained for it. I did it. Then you go up that ladder, 5K, 10K, half, full. Maybe you want to do an ultra marathon. Who knows? There are goals that you can set way beyond that. You can go any direction. There's so many directions. It's so wonderful. It is just a wonderful sport. You better yourself. It's amazing. Competitiveness. Here's the thing about competitiveness. When I looked at the sport originally, I always thought, everyone's going to a race. What's a race? A race is something that you win. So 100 people show up to the race. Only one person can win it. That means there's 99 losers. And the problem is that's not the case. The sport has changed, has developed into something where it's more camaraderie. The competitiveness, you compete against yourself. Finish the race. Earn the medal. Run it better than you ran it last time. Run it smarter than you ran it last time. Train harder so that you can do these things better, so that you can become a better athlete. And the best part of that is the fact that the competitiveness is not against other people, but against yourself. It means that the camaraderie is there because we all root for one another. We all root for one another to train harder. We support one another. We train with each other. We try to make everybody, we want everyone to succeed. It's a very positive atmosphere. You want everyone to succeed. It's great. So the team camaraderie is there. And then that fourth thing is that discipline. I got a tattoo on my leg. It says Iron Man on it. That's who I am now. And, maybe that's narrow, but man, training for that year to make that first Iron Man and training since then, it defines me. It defines me when I set my alarm clock for 4:30 in the morning and get on the bike. That's who I am, and I feel good being that person. Makes me feel good, like my time is being useful, that I'm not going to ever be that 280-pound guy with that daiquiri again, depressed and sitting in the middle of a pool. The question is now, it took me 17 years to figure that out. You don't have to wait 17 years. You don't. Fill that void. You got the void. The void is missing. The void is missing, and there is nothing you can do to fill that void. Except train. Except look at it as an opportunity. Like way back when I talked about my athlete Angela that I coached, when she looked at her races and she said, you know what? Yeah, it's true. I can't do any actual in-person races this year, but I'm going to look at this as an opportunity and I'm going to take it. Well, guess what? You may not have football and you may not have baseball and you may not have whatever sport that you were supposed to have that the adults took away from you. But you do have opportunity. It's out there. You just got to grab it, guys. And I'm here if you need to talk to me, Coach Scott at teamordinary.com. There's lots of different places you can go to check things out. If you're just getting started and you want just to try to take a nibble at this thing, go to teamordinary.com. Look at our Couch to 5K program. Start doing it. It's 10 weeks. In 10 weeks, you'll be doing a 5K. Start doing it. And if you're already ahead of that, be ahead of that. If you're looking for a coach, call me. Let me know. Look at our website, all that stuff. Join our group, Ordinary Marathoners on Facebook. Join our team, teamordinary.com. All that stuff. Join us if you have the resources. The best thing about running is you can do it any point in time. All you got to do is put on a pair of sneakers, and if it's a little bit cold, put on a little bit of a sweatshirt, and then go out and do it. And if you have some resources and you have a bike and you have a trainer and you can get on Zwift and be indoors, talk to me. Come join us for our ride. Anyone, you don't even have to be a high school athlete. Anyone who wants, come join us for our ride. We roll out of bed, we get on at 5 a.m. and we get moving. And we get things done, and it defines us. That's our character. And it can be yours too. That's all I'm saying is that we looked at this thing and I said, man, these poor kids. And I felt bad for you for about 1 second. Because I know that it took me 17 years to figure this out. I'm giving you the answer in one day. You can be mad. You can be upset. Let that thing fester. Take that void and don't let it fall into depression. Don't let it fall into anything bad. Turn it into something good. Turn it into something productive. Look at it as an opportunity. And remember, every day is an ordinary day unless you make it extraordinary. So get after it, guys.